Well, if we got those Gilmore nose commercials like Bo did, we get some a shoe deal for you. But I wanted to ask you to put on your diplomacy hat for just a moment. We have been talking about the MOU. We've been talking about the ceasefire that really wasn't a ceasefire. We've been talking about Donald Trump and the Iranians and who's in charge. And sir, it just seems like this is deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra used to say. We're the same spot we were just 7 days ago. What do you make of all this?
Well, first of all, but before I start talk about Iran, let me give a shout out. And
oh, wait a minute, we're having that same. We're having that same issue again. Just get you to twist a little bit that way. Okay, that's better.
How about now? I'm sorry about this.
No, that's okay.
Bad connection. Listen, I want to give a quick shout out to Senator Studevant and Delegate McNamara. They actually called for the extension of time for the SEC to review that Dominion Power case. And I issued a press release last week saying that we need more time. I understand the governor today has said that she wants to intervene in the case also at this point. So I think we're making progress on that. But to your point about this, listeners ought to keep in mind this fundamental thing here. This war in Iran is still going on. The president is basically saying he's going to apply bombing as his fundamental approach. And the goal here is to get Iran to give up their control over the Strait of Hormuz and to make sure that they never get a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't think it's a good thing for Iran to have either one of those things. Before this war started, they had no control, or at least no assertion of control, over the Strait of Hormuz. The international law of navigation was in effect and should be again, in my view. And we all agree that they shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. I issued an op-ed last week, though, which was published in the Washington Times, which said that we ought to add some additional tools into this besides just bombing. I'm skeptical that bombing is going to get Iran to where we need them to be. It has not worked in many places in the past. I hope it works here, that simply the use of force. But I suggested in an op-ed last week that the president convene a global meeting of countries to reassert international law, to reassert the opening of the Strait of Hormuz under international law, and the law of the sea and the law of navigation be reimposed. But if Iran is able to control that strait, they suddenly become a key gatekeeper to 20% of the energy of the world. And that turns them into a very major, significant power. Now, the president's trying to stop that through bombing. I'm okay with that if it can work, but I'm not sure it will work. And therefore, I've suggested that more diplomatic efforts be made by the convening of other countries and getting other countries on the side of the United States. Because right now, a lot of countries aren't outside of Iran. In fact, the Gulf countries now are pressuring the United States to not do this kind of bombing and instead to take other steps because they're concerned about the war in the Middle East also.
Expanding, which is something that Iran has tried to do. So we've talked about this for so long. Iran is using that military doctrine. I'm going to escalate and put more people. I'm trying to grab more people, bring them into this chaos, and then have them pressure the United States to call off the dogs. And it seems like we're seeing a little bit of that right now. But the one thing that I'm wondering, how do I negotiate with somebody who just doesn't seem like they want to negotiate? It seems like they're just trying to run out the clock. Can I get to real diplomatic solutions from a regime that I don't know if I can trust, number one? I don't know if we have the same, if we're even speaking the same language. How do you negotiate with someone like the Iranians who just are so different than we are and come to any kind of agreement?
Well, I don't think you can get into an agreement and trust the Iranian government because they're going to do what they need to do in order to maximize their influence. After all, they themselves at this point as under threat. And of course, they are under threat every day from American bombing. So they're going to do what they think they have to do. What you have to do at this point is get the world together to say again that one country can't control that choke point because there are other choke points in the world. By the way, the Houthis at this point in Yemen are trying to influence the Red Sea choke point exactly the same way. And there are other points like that around the world, including in Taiwan, the Strait of Malacca in Indonesia. World trade through the maritime industry has to be free. That is a fundamental point of international law, and the United States has always sought to guarantee that. If the Iranians are able to break that, then we have a whole different world here at this point, and conflict can really expand a great deal. So I think the goal of the president is right. I simply have urged in my op-ed that more tools, particularly getting the political support of other countries around the world for the United States, is the right move to supplement just simply bombing. That's been my point, my proposal.
I'm impatient. I think the American people are impatient. I think for the American people, we're just so used to rolling thunder, Norman Schwarzkopf. We walk in, we beat somebody in 2 days, and we move on, and we go back to whatever we're going to do. This has taken a lot longer than most Americans would have anticipated. Do I need to be more patient when it comes to this? I mean, sir, honestly, you know me. I pick up the phone a couple times a night just to see did anything happen while I'm sleeping, and I keep doing the same thing over and over again. Nothing's happening, and I'm like, okay, well, when is it going to happen? When are we going to do this thing? And then I bring myself back to a point of like, why am I being so impatient? What is the urgency of trying to come to a fruition of this thing today? Is there a sense of urgency?
Well, sure, there's a sense of urgency. The high gas prices around the United States demonstrate that there's urgency, but some things, I mean, the United States can't just wave a magic wand and make everybody do what we want them to do, particularly when we've initiated a war there, and that war is underway. But that's the fundamental question. How do we get this thing resolved immediately? And I don't think it can be resolved immediately. And I think that that's why I keep adding more tools into the process for the president. I've proposed that more political tools be added to military tools in order to get it done. But no, there's no immediate timetable on this, unless, of course, you want to raise an army of 1 million men and then invade Iran and do regime change. The only way that you can get a permanent settlement on this, Rich, is for the regime of Iran to agree that that's the way we're going to do things, and they're not going to try to control the Strait of Hormuz. This government will not do that. So you can change the regime. That the goal has always been to try to change the regime. That's not on the table right now. I mean, you could do it the way we did it in Iraq, by raising an army of 1 million people and putting them into that country. Lose 200,000 men in the process. We're not going to do that. Nobody's ever said we're going to do that. So when this was launched, you have to think about what tools are at our disposal to actually get to the ultimate goal of creating government you can work with. So far, that's not on the table.
Okay, one other thing I'm going to look at, and I'm going to pivot to China and maybe even Russia as well. The longer this goes on, the longer I'm afraid we're looking like that we will sit there and dither and we'll be kind of just spinning our wheels a little bit. I think that emboldens other countries to say, well, you know what? You saw what they did. Boom. They went into Venezuela. They're going to be forceful. Now you look, when you have somebody who's a little bit bigger of a bully with Iran, the longer this takes, the more it gives other people pauses of like, would they really react like that if we went into Taiwan or we went in and expanded things in Eastern Europe? How would the United States respond? Because now they're being confronted by somebody who's not going to roll over and capitulate, and look how they can't figure out what to do.
I think the actions of the United States and Iran demonstrate that we're prepared to intervene and prepared to take action. And this should be put Russia on notice that if they attack NATO, that the United States is going to end up behind all the NATO countries as we have pledged. And that should mean to the Russians, don't start that kind of war at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very key to keeping the peace in the world today. And to shift back to Ukraine for just a minute, which has been my point for years now. I've been pretty bullish about this because the Ukrainians have been able to attack Russia in their homeland and destroy much of their infrastructure for energy and oil and refineries, which I think was putting pressure on Putin, and that is pressure on Putin. But the other problem is now that Putin has shifted from drones to missiles, and the Ukrainians do not have missile shoot-down capability at this point. With their Patriot missiles, we're not providing them. Europe can't.
1 minute.
Over the long run, they might be able to develop those missiles, but they don't have them now. I'm more worried now about the European war than I was as recently as last week because of the Russian attack on civilians, which, by the way, is a war crime. We have to once again have international law focus on the fact that war crimes are bad things, and they're killing the individual citizens in their apartment complexes, in their schools. That's the Russian way of doing war right now, and it cannot be allowed.
It's been that way for them going back as far as Stalin and all the way through the history of that country back to the Soviet Union as well.
Well, it means we have to be careful about saying that might always makes right. It's hard in Iran and it's hard in Ukraine.
It's a lot to think about. It's an awful lot to think about. Well, sir, thank you very much. Appreciate our opportunity to sit down and talk, and I can't wait to catch up with you next week.
We'll see you again next week, and thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Governor Jim Gilmore joining us here on News Radio WRVA. That gives you a lot to think about. This might always make